South Africa here. We're going to welcome Kristen Brent. He's been operational in the emergency medical industry for 8 years, experience in road operations, ICU, and critical care operations as well. In addition, obviously, with dispatching hands and fixed wing operations, Kristen has a keen interest in healthcare management and recently completed the latest tertiary qualification in law, with lots more to follow. Are we hiding there, Kristen?
No hiding, but thank you so much. I'm just going to share my screen quickly.
Absolutely.
Great, thank you really much, and thanks to everyone for joining us. It really is a privilege to be invited to speak at this event, so thank you again. I'm going to be discussing some of the many challenges that us as paramedics in South Africa face on a day-to-day basis, and some of the ways that we are facing these challenges. I think there are a few of these challenges that we face are ones that are worldwide challenges, but South Africa can sometimes put a bit of a spin on these challenges. As a paramedic in South Africa, there is quite a lot of opportunity to gain experience because of the wide variety of challenging cases that you're faced with daily, as well as the frequency of these cases. With us being a nation with many cultures, there are various aspects that come into play when attending to a case, and this can range from cultural differences to beliefs to languages. The need to have an understanding of the culture of the area that you're attending that case to really significantly helps your treatment of their patient. It comes into respect with patients' beliefs, respect when it comes to what they expect of you as a practitioner as well. An example I experienced was going into an area, we were doing a declaration of death for an elderly gentleman in quite a strong cultural area. And before we could go in, I was said or told that you kind of need to please wait for the family to first accept you into the home. And we said, okay, no problem, we'll wait. And then we went inside and we walked into the lounge, and there was this lady lying on the floor on her back. And from anyone's perspective, she would have almost looked unconscious. So we thought, okay, should we help? Or is she okay? And they said, no, she's fine. She's speaking to her ancestors. It's okay. You need it in the other room. And it's those kind of scenarios that you're never going to really be taught in a textbook. It's only going to come from experiences and going out there and treating these kind of patients. With us having 11 official languages, communication can also complicate attending to a patient. It can create difficulty in assessing a patient and to adequately understand the expectations of what that patient expects from you. Gaining consent and sufficiently communicating what intervention you'd like to perform can also take a bit of patience and sometimes a little bit of creativity. I apologize, I've had a little bit of a hiccup with my laptop. So when it comes to the types of cases that we see, trauma is the leading cause of disability and premature death in South Africa, with traumatic brain injuries caused by assault being at the forefront of this cause. A number of motor vehicle accidents are happening daily, and that are also incredibly high in number. Mass casualties are also common, especially in the outlying areas due to long distance travel, poorly maintained roads, poor lighting of roads, poorly maintained vehicles, and speeding, especially now over our holiday periods. We'll often dispatch vehicles to go and sit on the areas that we know people are going to be traveling on, and there's a high incidence of accidents. So over Easter, now over Christmas, those specific times. You will get your bus carrying 50 people that will lose control. You will get your taxis that are having a head-on collision and they'll be full to the brim of 20 patients not wearing seatbelts because there's so many of them. And you'll go out into these areas and often it's just the initial ambulance before any help can go to them. You also get cases in your farming and industrial areas with mass casualties involving poisons such as your organophosphates. It has become a norm in our shift life to experience and to manage cases that do involve high levels of trauma with a certain aspect of some abnormality. There are cases that sit with you. It's the running of multiple car accidents with these serious injuries, attending to the sexual assault cases, the drownings, the heart attack, and the stroke, all in less than 12 hours. You'll find that less and less it shocks you, but it's something that us as South African paramedics, I think we kind of learn to deal with. It becomes our daily. One of our more challenging concerns is something that we continue to face as well on a day-to-day basis, and that's the safety of paramedics. Our next speaker, Craig Wiley, will be delving into this a bit in our environment. We do go into areas where ambulances are targeted as they are seen as a source of valuable items to steal, and going into areas that are known for high levels of violence and shootouts often contributed by the gangs. In the Western Cape, which is more towards the southwest of our country, there are areas that are classified as red zones, and they're monitored for the activity of violence and crime-related incidents. Some areas are permanently classified as red zones, where others are merely monitored, and if there's an incident, they'll be classified as a red zone for a certain period of time. When it comes to other red zones that are permanent red zones, it's known that you either just don't go into that area, or you'll only go into that area with the police escort, and that's if you can get one. It is unfortunately not a system that's nationally implemented. I learned this by moving from a different province down to the Western Cape, where on our norm, we'd go into these townships with our police assistants. And sure, it was nerve-wracking, and you'd ask your control center to be watching the cameras to make sure that you were all on high alert. So it is a system that I think will benefit our country by implementing nationally. We do unfortunately place our lives in danger daily. It was an interesting experience to see the change in these systems when I came down to the Western Cape, and we went into one of these townships, and I went in as if it was a normal day with my red lights on, and the partner that I was working with at the time started panicking about having our red lights on. I looked at him and I was like, okay, what's the problem? He said, no, you need to please switch your lights off and crack the windows. Okay, and I asked him why. And the communities often associate those red lights with law enforcement. And by cracking our windows, we can then just hear out if there's anything abnormal going on in the area. So it was quite a learning curve for me. The violence that goes on in these communities often impact more than just us as paramedics. A lot of the people that live in these communities aren't involved in the violence or in the gangs, but their access to healthcare is inhibited. So there are systems in place that we try and assist those people because their access to healthcare is limited. For many years, medics and paramedics in our country were predominantly trained and educated through short courses. There were 3 courses which you studied over time and as you gained experience. You started with a 6-week course in which you were qualified as a basic ambulance assistant, also known as a basic life support medic. And then you would need approximately 1,000 hours for you to then apply for the next course. The next course was 3 months in length, and that you could then qualify as an ambulance emergency assistant, also known as an intermediate life support medic. With an additional 1,000 hours on top of that, you could then attend the 1-year critical care assistant course and qualify as an advanced life support paramedic. It was over time that additional higher education courses were developed where you could obtain a diploma or a degree. The issue that we are currently facing is that about 4 years ago, all these short courses were stopped for various reasons, and we now only have the ability to qualify through the higher education system. But this does leave us with a shortage of medics and paramedics, which is only going to be corrected over time, and as we slowly create more paramedics through the higher education system. A lot of our areas in our country, especially the more rural outlying areas, will maybe have 1, maybe 2 practitioners that are trained in advanced life support that'll cover sometimes 1, even 2 provinces just on their own. And that's where a lot of our systems such as HEMS will come into play. Another challenge that our industry faces is the challenge that is invisible. It goes without being noticed, and it's often until it's too late. Most of our paramedics will be in need of help without knowing how to access that help and that it is okay to do so. The challenge is that the mental health and wellness of our paramedics is at risk. I do believe that very slowly we are changing this outlook in our industry, but it is a bit reactive more than a proactive response, and something that we are trying to change and train more into our paramedics. To not have to work when you're not on shift, to not just be on the groups all the time and have your radio in your house with you the entire time, to also be able to switch off from your shifts. I know we spend majority of our hours a month with our work colleagues, and it becomes quite easy, to be really involved in work, but something trying to teach you to be separate from that, and also you come first. I quite like the saying that you cannot pour from an empty cup. So I think that sums it up really well. If you're not okay, then you cannot expect yourself to healthily provide to other people. At the end of the day, our family needs us and cannot replace us, whereas another paramedic can take over the shift. We need to almost change the mindset of that crying is a weakness. In South Africa, there's quite a difference between public and private healthcare. This does pose a challenge to practitioners when it comes to facilities that will accept patients and your treatments, when it comes to taking accountability and the practicing of financial medicine. Aspects such as distance to the nearest facility and sometimes ensuring that the treatment you provide will meet the necessary requirements that will benefit the patient needs to be taken into account. My personal setting is in the private healthcare sector, where we provide a team approach to patient treatment. Some of the more predominant private services are linked to healthcare hospital groups. We work as a team from the first contact all the way until the patient is discharged home, and end treatment goals are kept in mind. Your treatment can include that of consults with specialists, patients receiving help even before you arrive by starting video call-based assessments, and specialized units being dispatched at the appropriate time. Now, I know as much as we've got our challenges in our country, and it may come across as a bit negative, our country really is amazing. Without only focusing on the negative, there are many positives as well. And what we can ensure is that we have well-trained paramedics that give the best preparation to deal with what they will encounter. And bringing all our challenges together, I believe we create paramedics that have a multifaceted approach to patient treatment, from looking at how you communicate to a patient and include your approach to your care, to show respect in various forms when providing care, to creating a strong sense of awareness and safety, as well as personal health, and taking on a team approach to ensure that your patient's treatments and outcome are at the forefront of whatever you do. Thank you for joining, and anyone who is keen on visiting South Africa, you won't regret it.
Hi, Kristen. Some very, very powerful comments and quotes you had in there. Absolutely powerful. With it, can I ask how big? It says it works in the private sector. How is critical care a relatively new thing in South Africa? Forgive me.
I wouldn't say relatively new. It is something that is continuing to grow, and we're trying to increase our education towards being able to specialize in more areas and be able to provide more concentrated treatment.
And have you found that when it moved to the higher education, what's the uptake in that like, or is there a big gap at the minute?
There is a bit of a gap. I'd say it's slowly coming together. I was one of the first diploma paramedics that came out. It wasn't taken very well. Again, just moving from system to system is going to have its hiccups, but I think we are getting there.
Absolutely amazing. Listen, thank you ever so much for your time, and yeah, absolutely incredible presentation. Thank you. So up next, I'd like to